This episode is brought to you by Stash Blend. I've been using Stash Blend for over a year now, and it's awesome. One of the things that I really like is that it saves me money. It's a whole bunch of different inputs in one. So I no longer have to go out there and buy a silica bottle, then a separate seaweed bottle, beneficial bacteria, then a separate one for mycorrhizal fungi. All of that plus more is in this one blend. Go to stashblend.com to learn more about it, and I also have a link down in the YouTube description section below.
This episode is brought to you by AC Infinity. The Ion Beam Kit is AC Infinity's full-spectrum LED bar lighting. This kit includes a lighting controller, 4 LED grow light bars, and 4 steel bars that allow for flexible mounting on any part of the grow tent. Its unibody housing and aluminum board feature full-spectrum Samsung LM301H white LEDs. And the beauty of it is, you can integrate this with all of the AC Infinity products in your garden. And if for some reason you don't already have the Controller 6.9 Pro, well, this kit includes an innovative controller that features 4 brightness intensity levels and 4 daily timer settings. This LED is not only efficient, but very affordable, especially when using that discount code, TheStash15 at checkout.
Podcast, we are live and direct here with a special guest. We got Shane from Migro.
Hey guys.
Person, man.
Second time on the podcast, right? You've
Great
been
to
on
be
there
here
once
in person.
before and
First
in
time in person.
Nice.
Thank you very
Shane,
much.
thanks for making time for us today, man.
It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure. So far, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
We'll see how this goes.
Yeah.
We just cracked the first one, so we'll see how much trouble
This
we
is
get
true.
into,
This
you
is
know?
true. We actually had allegedly first a blunt in 28 years. This is just behind the scenes stuff, but it's a pleasure, man, to be able to hang out.
Well, you know what I can say on top of that, actually, because for years and years, I was telling you this yesterday, people used to think that I was stoned when I was doing my videos. You know, just the regular stuff that I do for YouTube. And as I was saying to you, Chris, like, you know, doing YouTube videos is enough going on. I really don't need to be stoned on top of that. So just the idea to me that I would even do that was just ridiculous, particularly as the nerves and everything else with the early videos. But anyway, they insisted I was stoned all the time. This is the first time I actually am stoned. So it's a big first that I'm on YouTube stoned.
I love it,
We're
man.
glad
it's
we
nice.
could do it. And man, it was awesome. We ran into you today at MJ BizCon in
MJ
Vegas,
BizCon,
2023.
Yeah, we're selling it, MJ Business.
This is your first,
Yeah.
They've been good to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've been good to us. This is your first time.
It's my first time, yeah.
Pretty overwhelming, or
Yeah, it was. To be honest, it has been. Yeah, I'm pretty tired. I have to say, I've never seen so many grow lights in my life. Intimidating at first, but in fairness, actually, I really enjoyed it. I got to meet a lot of companies, all cool. Nobody seems to be particularly pissed off at me, which is good.
not that they're willing to admit.
Exactly. Yeah, nobody said anything to my face, which is all that counts for me, really. Yeah, it's been a really nice experience. Got to see Vegas a little bit as well. So, and going partying tonight.
What do you think?
So
What do you think of Vegas?
I think it's very Vegas. Like I had no idea. I'd never been here before or anywhere like it. But it's exactly what I expected it to be. It's kind of weird, you know. It's like I remember traveling to New York the first time I was in the States, and I was like, this is exactly like it looks in the movies. It actually does look like this.
Oh, I would love to go to New York. Have
Yeah.
you boys been to New York?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I went
it's
there
cool.
for a funeral.
It's cool. Yeah.
Oh,
Nice, yeah.
Yes.
I would love to go. It's somewhere we got to go.
Yeah.
I don't know what the scene's like.
In fairness, though, I haven't seen much of Vegas. I got out. I did the main strip, went out for dinner, that kind of stuff, and then went down to the old Vegas or whatever you call it,
Fremont?
and
Yeah,
down
that's
that
where we
area.
went to.
The
So we
Fremont
get down.
experience.
But yeah, all the casino stuff, no interest. All the show stuff, no interest. So there's not a huge amount for me in that sense. It's just like go to the bars, or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But it's
Hit the social scene.
I'm kind of missing the point, you know, with a lot of Vegas and that. I just
You could say the same thing for us.
Yeah, the point of Vegas for us is Chris lives here and work. Yeah, we come out here, and there is I feel like it's a nice center of the business side of this plant between California, the West Coast of the states. But I feel like the East Coast is definitely going to flourish soon with New York coming in. But for me, it's like everything's apples and oranges. I've walked around MJ BizCon, and there was nothing that I was maybe a couple things, but nothing that was like, whoa, that's next level.
Yeah.
Innovate and I don't know if we're in a stagnant state. We're kind of talking about this, like a stagnant development state where now we're just getting better cost efficiency. Like everything's becoming more efficient in the cost area.
Yeah, with the lighting, like it's just, you know, there's an efficiency in the current format, which is just simply LED bar lights using pretty much standard LEDs, white LEDs off the shelf. They're cheap, good value for money. And sticking a driver on top, and hey presto, you've got a light, you know. There's some stuff I've seen which is not necessarily pushing the technology much, but it's more the formats of the lights that you're getting. So nice packaging, the way things integrate together, flexibility with some of the systems, variable spectrum is still going around and still being sold. I'm not sure a lot of people know what to do with it, or what benefit actually gives.
Good marketing.
It has to be.
Yeah. Well, like it's like whenever anybody suggests it to me, I'd go, okay, so you've got 3 channels. How are you going to adjust them? What are you going to do? And you know, this is far red, putting plants to sleep and all that stuff. And that's, you know,
I've heard about a lot of this stuff.
There's all these various. So, but if you take them aside, there are potential benefits. So, for example, with particular strains, you might find it more advantageous to keep them shorter during the veg stage. So it's more about convenience, but getting the most out of the plant rather than any magical formula. So changing the shape of the plant through different stages. So you might want to stretch it a bit in veg, for example. So it might be a really good idea to use loads of far red at the first stage. Stretch the fuck out of it. Don't use any blue, you know.
Yeah.
We got to, if you have the channels and you're going to experiment with them and you're going to find out these little nuances or benefits that you can achieve by adjusting them, absolutely. But to do that, you got to have some company who goes out there and proves this stuff. So does A and B testing, uses different light recipes, shows the plants as they're growing, shows the difference, and quantifies it at the end. And until I see that, it's all.
A lot of companies aren't doing that. They're just
And why wouldn't you? If you developed the technology and you believed it, the only way that you'd believe it is by having the evidence, and you'd have the evidence by testing it. And if you had the evidence, why wouldn't you share it with people?
right.
Supporting data is what.
I just and I as I was saying to you, I spoke to this guy yesterday, and he was knowledgeable, or at least he had all the words necessary to convince me that he knew something about it. But as I was saying to you, he was showing me some charts they'd done with different strains using different light recipes at different times. And there was this qualitative aspect. So there was the amount of quality nugs versus nerf and, you know, all these sort of various measures that they were delivering. But I looked at the spreadsheet. I couldn't really figure out the numbers. It all looked like, because some stuff was going up and some stuff was going down, and it wasn't clear
like
to me.
Terpenes and cannabinoid numbers, or was it more like
they didn't go into that? No, it wasn't. No,
plants?
yeah, it's more the structure of the plant. So it was how to squeeze better productivity. So you could be shortening cycle time. You could be improving the quality of the nugs. So, you know, you've got better bud development all over the plant rather than really big to small, or, you know, various things like this. And that's fine. Like, if people have been developing this information and it's commercially proprietary information, you know, they're not going to give it away online to us for nothing. So I understand them using that. But I'd also say that if it was really beneficial, we'd see commercial growers doing it all over the place. Could be because there's an obvious cost advantage.
Yeah.
Or at least there should be if it works. And I don't. I see small companies doing little bits of stuff with people which...
It's almost taboo. Like it's not really.
I don't know. I don't know. I think there could be benefits. Definitely. I think there's manipulations that you can do to the plant that will improve either cycle time, yield, or quality. But I just haven't seen any evidence of it. That's, you know.
Yeah, and that's the supporting evidence. I feel like is where the marketing really could come, but instead it's just claims. And
well, there's loads of weird stuff goes on. So still, like, you remember all the HPS LED stuff, right? So there's an argument about HPS versus LED. And to this day, online, I'd say there's maybe 2 growers that ever put any proper tested grows up, where they did large trials with a control, or, you know, comparing one against the other with the same genetics, the same media, you know, all that sort of stuff. So proper test.
Yeah.
And I've only ever seen, like, that was LED versus HPS. That was a debate that went on for 10 years. and nobody ever fucking, and I'm like, I can point my fingers at myself as well, but like we as an industry never actually demonstrated clearly what the benefit was.
A lot of hearsay and a lot of opinion.
Yeah.
And I think that's the issue is like you'll go to places and be like, well, you could tell it's HPS bud. This was grown that way. It's just, you're not getting this from LEDs. It's like, it's the same argument. Like you could tell the organic, the terps, that's the difference. You could taste the organic, you taste the organic, it's like saying, do you taste the love in the sandwich I made?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Because someone who puts a little more love in it is going to put mayo.
you have to
give you a
put
little
love
butter,
in it. That is
a little
true.
salt,
That's the love for
pepper,
most
a little-
of us. Is
Or
there's
you're just going to get meat between 2 dry pieces of bread.
but that love, in my opinion, needs to have some actual evidence, not anecdotal
Absolutely.
evidence. And then I need to say, well, our love is we put extra. Your protein's higher. We put more in there. Not like, well, it's just my feelings that I put into it, because that's not going to sell in this market.
Well, we're in a much better state now where anecdotal evidence, opinion doesn't dominate, or is losing its grasp on the evidence that we have towards
One word.
these questions.
What are they called? Foshi.
Foshi.
Fos.
Fos, or Fos, whatever they call it.
Fos.
That's my
Lighting.
response to that.
Foshi.
One word
Yeah,
response.
That's how I
Foshi.
pronounced it too. Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's how you
I
pronounce
thought
it.
it was Fashi.
Fosh. I thought, yeah.
Yeah.
We all call it something.
Fos.
Today I learned it's Bovida, but is that I keep saying Bovida, like
Bovida.
some Michigan.
Bovida. I guess it's Bovida.
Bovida.
Yeah, the guy.
Meanwhile, I'm over in Michigan.
Anyway,
just like,
I
it's
don't think we're
Bovida.
completely done with unsubstantiated claims just
No,
yet.
no,
I
it
think there's
still
plenty of room in the market. For
It still dominates our daily lives, right?
The thing is, as long as they still continue to get sales, companies continue to be able to push these things out, and nobody sits there and says anything otherwise. Even when there's actual evidence, people will be like, "Don't care."
Yeah, but you know what? There's a so when my analogy for the spectrum mixing and all that stuff is, the tablets that you get for washing dishes or clothes, and it's a bit like the toothpaste, and you know the way it has those little colored compartments. And
Yeah, as
there's
if that
different
does a whole
colored
different
gel,
thing,
and
yeah.
as if one of them just comes out
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
scrubs the
This
hard stuff
starts
off.
here.
The next one comes out and like scrapes it away and stuff. It's like it's all the same shit. It's just dyed.
Yeah, they want you to
But
think this.
when
is
you're going to
illusion.
buy those tablets, if we have the money and we're going to make sure our clothes are washed well, we buy the ones that has the little colorly pockets in it, and pretend like they're going to do 5 different things with salt and soap basically mixed together. But,
with a gel base.
Anyway.
And that,
I
that's
just-
where we're
I-
at in the light game, I feel, is we're just like, what other bell and whistle can we put on here that seems real cute?
It was one of the running themes, so I went around and obviously saw a lot of grow light manufacturers, and almost every single one, somewhere in my general conversation with them, without me raising it, brought up Fosi and how much they hate them. And I just thought it was hilarious, because like what all it is envy about how ballsy they can be, how much money they're throwing at it.
And market share
And
they're trying to grab.
Yeah. And how big their fucking stand is. And it's just sour grapes. And my view is looking at them going,
Just prove it.
mine is just simple. Like there's loads of places, there's huge market to sell lights, and they're going to take a certain type of people. And that certain type of people is going to be attracted by a certain marketing campaigns and, all that kind of stuff.
There's
And there's all the other sensible, intelligent people that
that's
are
what you
left
said,
over
you said it
that
better.
we can appeal to.
you said it way better. I was going to say, yeah.
It's
okay.
like a
boobs.
Yeah.
exactly.
I
Exactly.
think that's where it's
Exactly.
like there is a place, and that's where I try not to
You want to spend twice as much for the same that everybody else is selling.
and feel good about
Go
it
there.
to brag to your
Go
friends.
there.
Like,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
that's
yeah.
the thing is sometimes I try to choose my words better because I don't want to be offensive, but some people feel better when they spend more, and it's like, hey, if you think that it makes it a better piece,
Yeah.
good for you. Or there's other ways, but then it's like no matter what, unless you go and show them the piece, they want to see the end nug.
Yeah.
If they just saw one big fat cola, they'd be like, I'm sold. That's what it takes, and that's the thing.
Well, again,
is the
another
marketing.
analogy, a podcast guy I follow, and it's sort of businessy, leadershipy kind of stuff, but interest in psychology in it. And one of them was a marketing guy, and he was big into his coffee, right? This global expert in coffee. And the way he was explaining it was he was saying so you go into different coffee shops and they had a selection, and you got your Starbucks and you got your chains, and then you got these little boutique places, that do really nice coffee, and they really careful to source it, all their costs are higher. but they're afraid to charge more than Starbucks, because like Starbucks sets the price for everywhere. And your man's going, it's crazy. Like, it's totally counterintuitive. They're doing all the work. They're providing a really nice personal service. They've got a much more nicer feel in their coffee shops. They're serving better coffee, but they're afraid to stick their head above and charge more because they'll think they'll like bad value or something. And it's a little bit like that in the industry, where in reverse thinking, if you charge more, people will think that the quality is higher.
Yep. I mean, look at cars. Look at vehicles are a prime example. You'll have GMC and Chevy that have very, very, very similar look, layout, parts, but somebody will feel like more of a baller if they're pulling up in the GMC, the Yukon, and over the Tahoe, maybe a little bit more stunner. There's something about it, and I feel like that's a lot of it is perception and branding. You know, and I can't knock somebody for that because I love branding, but when it comes to technology and that's your pitch me with branding, pitch me with cool, pitch me with awesome. Don't pitch me with innovation if it's not, because I'm looking for it. I go around MJ BizCon being like, entertain me. Yeah. One year our entertainment was just lights that you could spray a bunch of water at.
You put them in the shower.
Well, yeah.
That was interesting.
Well, another interesting one that came up was the intra-canopy lighting. So there's 5 or 6 of the big companies now are producing this intra-canopy lighting. So got your regular lighting above, and the theory would be that the underside of the plant is underutilized. So they've got these tube LED bars, so they kind of sealed at each end, plastic, acrylic coating around them or covering on them, and you hang them or put them on little stands underneath the plants and running along underneath the canopy. The theory being that you're going to develop more growth down those areas of the plant. So that's the other one I saw. But again, like when I was speaking to the guys about the numbers and stuff, there wasn't a huge amount of data saying, you know, if you add another 25% of wattage to intercanopy, are you going to get 25% more growth? You know,
Pigeons and I have talked about this so many times.
Have you ever tried it?
Oh yeah, I've taken T5s back in the HPS days.
That's not really doing it though, because they're not putting out anything.
No, but that's where it turned me off. This is my prime example of let me see the results. Because I didn't see the results when I did it, so I'm like, screw it, I'll just make them naked under there. And now I'm such a stickler with making sure that I have a flatter plant, and I try to do more of the trellising or scrogging to make it so I'm using as much as the plant. Yeah. That under area, I'm not so worried. Like everything's being hit. The light penetration is how I've trained the plant. Now I could see maybe in a commercial setting when you have naked plants with nothing underneath them, and it's like, why would you not?
Yeah.
Why would you veg them that long?
Yeah, I think the plant, you know, the plant has a certain capacity to deliver, and I think that there's a limit to that capacity. And if you look at what most growers are doing, are probably top lighting at about 800 or 900 micromoles at best. And you know, all the theory is saying that, and testing. So we do have some controlled, tested information coming out of Bruce Bugby and his studies. So he actually tells you pretty straightforwardly that the return rate, so your power intensity versus your yield, is a straight line up to approaching about 1500. And that's without elevated CO2, you know. So like there's always been this theory. First we were limited by HPS and the amount of heat it produced. So a 400 watt and a 4x4, that was as much as you could put in there, or you'd be, you know, you'd have a tornado going through trying to get the heat out, and the radiated heat in particular. But that was only about 450 micromoles. Most of the LED companies now are selling at about 850 micromoles average now. That's what they're delivering. So a 500 or 600 watt and a 4x4 is now 850, 900 micromoles. But I'm pretty sure you can go to 1300, which is an extra 25 or 30% more growth, still a straight line. And until you've gone past that point, what's the point of putting under canopy lighting?
Yeah.
Because you haven't maximized your initial delivery system. There's nowhere reason to go under canopy.
State, yeah.
You're just putting something down there where you're not quite sure. it's restricting airflow. It's hitting
This
a
is
lot
your
of
red
branches,
dot
and
inside of your
there's not
washing device.
if you do leave a lot of leafage down there, you're opening yourself up to problems with airflow and everything. And if you strip it, well, then what the fuck are you lighting? So
Yeah, and I think the big issue is this is that prime example of your Dawn detergent with the little red thing in the center. Is it's sexy.
it's just something
attractive.
else.
It's
It's just something to play with and spend your money
it's
on.
innovative, where it's like, whoa, that's a new accessory.
One color that has 3 colors.
But like Fluence are selling them, you know.
Well, and even like
So, like, if I was
homies
talking to
AC
Fluence,
Infinity,
I'm
we have
like-
them too. We use them for clones or use that lower lighting, that versatile positioning lighting, in my opinion, for other unique scenarios. It's not going to be for under my canopy. That's more for me. So
Yeah.
it's tough though, because you tell it to somebody who then have a very, very good presentation in front of them and paperwork that has graphics and things, and it doesn't make sense to deny, because you're like, well, look at all this, look at all this, look at all this. Like, it's a
Well,
hard
I
argument.
went with open ears for all that stuff. So I listened to the pitches on the variable spectrum. I listened to the pitches on the intercanopy lighting, and I'll put it to you this way: I'm not going to be producing those type of lights myself. You know, I wouldn't. It just wouldn't be something that I could say works. So I don't think I'd be able to sell it. You know, like, it's just not.
Well,
And
that's
it
like,
seems like the industry, I mean, kind of going back to people are, it sounds like they're going towards yield mostly, and like really not talking much about the quality, like how does.
I think so. At the,
Yeah,
at the, at the
quality
intensity
and-
of the light and the spectrum that's coming from your standard white LED light these days, as far as I can determine, is delivering a healthy quality plant.
Right,
If the
so
intensity is right, that like there is this discussion over, you know, quality, not as in potency now, but in terms of taste and flavor of using UVB. So I was a bit skeptical about this at the start, but I ended up going over to a couple of facilities, actually in the UK, who were growing medicinally, so for CBD. And these are big, but like we're talking acres of greenhousing. And they were testing narrow wave bands of UV, but it wasn't just even with cannabis. They were doing it with rosemary and herbs and all this other stuff they were doing for the supermarket. And yeah, it does work in that sense, but also it's very strain dependent. How much for how, you know, at what time, all this sort of stuff is still not really, it's not optimized. It hasn't really been, again, control tested.
So for the average home grower, it's like, would you say it's an overkill at that point?
No,
Or would
I
you
don't
say-
think so. But like to anybody that I would sell it, and any time I've ever spoken to, I'd saying the results that they were getting. So these guys doing it for CBD now, it's cannabinoids. It doesn't really, you know, it doesn't matter that it was just a CBD variety, because it was more for them about extraction and the oils, and they were looking for the terpenes. So they were just looking like any buttons that they could press that could deliver more oils and therefore be higher value from an extraction point of view. But they were getting 40% in some strains of some terpenes, and little or nothing in others. So
Interesting.
yeah, it was very strain dependent.
Now, what about like supplementing, like far red? I mean, we actually had this conversation on my podcast, and I think we might have touched
Yeah.
upon it on
Yeah.
From the Stash. And I think one of the things you had mentioned that it sparked a lot of, say, I don't know if you saw that yet, but
a lot of controversy, we'll
adding
say.
in additional far red
Yeah.
beyond what's already in the grow light.
Yeah.
I think you had mentioned that, you know, for the average home grower, you're not going to really get much out of that.
So there's two things to consider. There's one is the effect on the shape of the plant. So what effect will it have? Will it make it grow taller or shorter or more flowers or more leaves? And there are some plants that respond to a particular spectrum. And so we know that, for example, a higher proportion of blue in the spectrum will result in shorter, more dense plants. And far red is the opposite effect. So it leads to stretching, so longer internodal distances. It does larger leaves as well, which is why I was saying earlier, you know, there is an argument that you could be using far red in early veg stage, promoting longer stems, larger leaves, and getting that canopy out, that solar panel out to capture as much of the light as possible at an early stage. Now, the plant may be a little dangly and may not be as strong or whatever, but then you could turn up the blue, you know, and you could push it in a different direction from there. But, you know, I think any of those things, what you're talking about is mostly degrees of difference. And like often with the plant size, for example, and getting the best out of the early one, I always say to people, grow more smaller plants and you'll fill that canopy quicker, and you'll or get a sub tent and be growing seedlings and growing them 3 or 4 weeks old before you pop them in. Because the biggest waste I see with grow lighting is the first 4 or 5 weeks, and somebody's putting this little seedling inside of four seedlings inside a 4x4, which have the sum total area of about 10 square inches in a 4 foot by 4 foot space, and it's like you're using 500 watts to fucking to grow these 2 little tiny plants.
God, I
Like
see those
if
pictures so
you look
often.
at
all the time.
Just
my
lights.
my family point of view into horticulture and stuff. So my wife's into horticulture, and my mother is qualified and all this stuff. But I have some exposure to what people do in the commercial world in terms of market gardening and greenhouse growing and all that stuff. And like, so they're all about production and just banging them out, And it's pot sizes, you start in tiny little trays, and they're doing them on this side because they have a limited space in their greenhouse and they're trying to produce as much. So it takes extra work to transfer all these things into larger pots and do it, but it's worthwhile because you're maximizing the use of your space. That idea of tweaking and twiddling with a spectrum when you're leaving these huge inefficiencies in your grow, it's just like sort out the fucking really obvious basic stuff that's in front of you, get your environment right, use a better medium, whatever the case may be. But there's usually 10 other things you could do before you start something that you don't know whether it's going to work or not. So,
Well said.
concentrate on the basics, and the rest,
Some of the best grows, and not necessarily the best smoke, but the best grows I've seen are the most simple. The guys who are grabbing those kind of lights that we were just talking about, they don't even think, they just get it done. This is what they say to do. They say, I got a transplant here. I start with it, and they follow it. And
do you know what?
beautiful
I've
plants.
stopped, as I was saying to you, I've got young kids now in the house. Well, they're older, and therefore I have to be good at home, so I can't grow at home, unfortunately. But when I did, I was the laziest fucking bastard. I spent the minimum amount of time in my garden, and I'm absolutely convinced the less time I spent in there, the better things went.
Yeah, Shane, my
Just voted to
man. This is where I get to contribute to the conversation. I don't do shit.
But there's minimizing everything, and you just you get a
let the
little
plant
production.
grow.
It's a little production, and part of being efficient is being efficient. It's not fucking around. With stuff.
Overthinking is so easy, specifically when
yeah.
you go online and you,
Well,
you
dude,
try
when
to
you watch
find
all of our
your-
videos and we get complicated in every video.
That's right,
People
that's
don't
right,
realize these
that's
are
right.
conversations.
These are conversations that I'm
These
trying to
aren't
jam
always
into
how-tos.
5 minutes.
Don't listen to us.
This is a discussion.
Right.
Whatever you do.
We're not saying go home and tweak your eye. Like we're saying, hey, these are
Someone
thoughts.
comes to me like, pigeons, my leaves are curled, and I sit there. I'm like, well, brother, it could be.
This stuff, but it's like,
And then he's going to go in there and go, turn this up, turn that down, move this, put it on that, less this, water that, flush here. And then all of a sudden, now he's got even more problems. It's really easy to overthink things. It's just the inundation of information has become so prevalent that
It's the smoking while
very easy.
gardening as well. I think could be the
Yeah. Honestly, it's
always
where you
get your gardening done first, and then
the-
smoke. It's like
turn the music up.
the amount of taps
Get
I've
in
left
there.
on, and valves I haven't
the
closed.
little,
and
the
stuff.
little
Yes. Come back 2 hours later, it's a swamp.
when you go into the space of like where we're at now, and like a prime example would be our product right here. And I always use analogies of like jiu-jitsu or martial arts, but like a lot of stuff can be really good if you have your white belt first, and then you get to your blue, and then you work your way to purple, brown, black. But instead, everybody wants to jump immediately to blue belt, and it's like slow down, get the basics done, and watch you not even ever need to go to blue or anything. You just feel very confident and comfortable where you're at. You may find the genetics you like, you're yielding what you yield. And then the other stuff is when you're a hobbyist and you're like, this is cool. What else can I do with the plant? And how can I manipulate this more? And that's when you get into some of these things about spectrum and dialing in the environment in another area, even VPD. I know people who have never heard that word ever. They just know their humidity and temperature need to stay between X and, and their plants are always great. And they happen to be hitting the VPD every time. And they don't even know or care. They don't have sensors for dryback, but yet they know I'm going to let my plant.
There's some stuff is not intuitive that way, though,
That is true.
Like and particularly, again, like I sort of grew up where we literally grew vegetables in the garden and all that kind of stuff. And just you soak up knowledge there. You don't realize you're doing it, but you just have a certain, common sense about doing some things. And, there's a lot of guys that I can tell that just have, they're really, fundamentally, it's just like
difficult.
right to the start. It's like birds and bees conversations with them, It's like, so a man and a woman. But
a lot of these people, they've never ever had a plant in front of them besides herb that they're into, and it's like, well, tomatoes.
And with them, it's just like, do you know what? Don't buy anything. Just get a seed, get a pot, get some soil, put seed in the pot, water the thing. Don't kill it for a few weeks. And then maybe you can, and like you're saying with the white belt, then my son, you can move on.
Why am I doing this? Well, there's a reason. It's like, but sometimes your mind isn't there yet.
Before you get your grow light controller and your
exactly
your
like
AC
work your
unit.
way here, man. Like get there, and then all of a sudden, everything you learn there will make you kill it because you're like, man, I'm already proficient in the basics of my discipline, so to speak. And now look at me, like I'm gonna tweak it. I'm gonna go to the next level. Yeah. And that's where I really think that growers can flourish. And going to events like the expo we're at is an eye-opener for a lot of people who are new when they go there and they see all this stuff, and then they get shiny object syndrome. And they go and buy the Dawn dish soap with the red centerpiece. And they're like, oh, I need this new piece of technology. It's like, who do you know who's using it? What studies have you seen? Anything. And they'll spend $1,400, $1,500. And meanwhile, in a year, every company has that diode. Right? Like, who doesn't have a Samsung 301B or 301H at this point?
Yeah.
Even random, like, and it's good.
And that's the question is, how many of them do they have?
There's not many. Usually people don't have them all the way.
So that's something so I got into trouble about this recently.
Controversy.
A bit of controversy, yeah.
I like it. We need some.
Some Instagram or YouTube people weren't happy with me because I was, I think, being possibly dismissive about their favorite Samsung diodes. Like, those sort of people. They're really passionate about their Samsung diodes.
They're like brand whores.
But do you know what's interesting about it? There's always an acid test question for me with these guys, right? So they'll post online. I'll post something about some reasonably priced, good performing light, and they'll come, oh, that shit, man, I only buy the best. I only get, mint fucking Evo diodes or whatever the f- it is, And it's like, oh, right, okay. So what light do you actually have now at the moment then? And they never have
First of all,
the one with the mint Evo diodes.
Yeah.
And they probably drive a second-hand car and, have a whacked out phone like the rest of us. But for some reason online, the way they show their colors is to say that they only buy the best in LEDs. I don't.
Insecurities.
Yeah.
Insecurities.
Yeah,
I swear, like.
And then these companies go out of
But
business.
what is interesting now? So like there's Mint Evo lights, for example, right? So I've tested, and they've got a few Mint Evo LEDs. But like maybe 1/20 of them, maybe 5% of them are Mint Evo LEDs. So they're a Mint Evo light, and it's like, really,
Like a knockoff, I think a lot.
No, but it's just like, what are they doing?
Well, you see these grow boxes that are getting real popular right now. The light they have in there is just a diode. Yeah. You notice that? Like that. I'm not even gonna give their names.
Did you see actually what was pretty cool? I did see one cool product. I think it might be cool anyway. Is the Vivo Sun grow box?
Dude, the V series, I know. And this is me fanboying.
Looks cool, doesn't it?
Looks sweet.
Doesn't it look cool?
It really looks, it's innovative. It's something
this
is what man, it's weird. I've been saying,
the
if we
only
can get this in a larger container.
The only thing I couldn't figure, so I was looking obviously it's got the light at the top, it's got the charcoal filter, it's got the, it's circulating the air up and down through the
then like the misting, and then it's got the irrigation system.
So but with the irrigation system, that's where like I was looking at the size of first of all, it's done by wicking. So you put a reservoir in the bottom, and it's got a couple of wicks coming out of the reservoir, kind of overlapping, and then you sit a fabric pot on top of it, so it's just wicking up. And like, I don't know if that works actually.
You got to have roots all the way to the bottom. I can only do it in flour.
Yeah.
Like I use the AC Infinity wick system. I have to be all the way in flour.
Capillary action, right? The wick string or whatever is going to draw that liquid up.
Oh yeah,
it's going to
yeah.
meet the sack. But then is it the sack that's bringing the liquid up, or is it actually the soil that sucks it up?
It seems like
Or
the
is it a
sack,
combination
the
of both?
sack brings it up, but if the roots are touching the base enough, then the roots will absorb it too. So it's like a third base system. But I've done it in veg, and it does nothing because my plant hasn't grown to the base of that fabric pot yet.
Well, I do it if I in DWC. So just when I'm putting the seedlings in, I usually wick down. So whatever it could be in Rockwool or whatever, and
Yeah.
I'll just wick it.
Direct wick to it though, and so that's the thing with the
just to
fabric
make sure
pot,
that
it's
the
a
cube doesn't
secondary.
dry out at all.
That's where I like to hand water too. Like with the AC Infinity ones, I'll hand water every so often too. But I use Stash Blend, so I'll hand water once a week. But then it's like with the wicks, I look at it as just flour.
So sorry, you're using an AC Infinity wick system.
Yeah, so it's like
So
the
they're
wick
doing
pot.
it already.
Well, they've got these basically they're like pot holders for like your pots, but then it's a extra little reservoir in there, and then they have a wicks wicks that are going through, and they can water your plants. For me, 3.
So it's
to
like a
5
backup
days.
system, more or less.
It really is more like a backup system
Yeah.
because I still have to water like once a week. But
And what about
before,
when
I was doing
when
a
the plant
ton.
gets really big now and there's a lot of foliage and stuff? Does it still keep up?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah, it does. Well, that's also too in organic soil will be different. So I'm in organic soil, so I still have to make sure that I'm moist.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm still doing my weekly watering, but then somebody who's in like let's say cocoa maybe who can deal with a little bit more, they could probably go further with letting the dry back go a little more than what I am.
I had a hard time with mine.
Yeah.
because I was growing monsters.
With a wick system.
Yeah, just because I was growing such
And two
large
big
plants.
beasts in a
Yeah,
like
large
monster big
plants.
plants.
Well, it's
So
going to
it
be
just didn't
it's a limit. It's going to be limited by the capacity of the
for sure.
string to.
Yep.
Yeah.
But if you're keeping yourself moderate sized plants, this is the way. That's the way to go. Like, it works quite well.
Speaking of lazy methods, I probably
Yeah,
If I was growing again, it
wick
sounds
system's
perfect for me.
beautiful. It's beautiful.
And I was never interested in yield. I was just quite happy. Just whatever came out the other
Honestly,
end.
I feel like that's how the majority of us get unless we're trying to challenge ourselves.
Or if you smoke like I do.
But other than that, it's like, no, I just want good.
Logistically reason.
There's logistics. There's math behind this. This is nothing personal. I think there's shifts in the market that are taking old school things and bringing it back, but just I'm feeling stagnant in terms of stuff. It's like, oh, cool, another Phototron.
And let me ask you guys, just for my own information, so if I do go back to, I'm hoping as my kids get, so it's like this window where they're now teenagers and I have to be like, have good
Cautious of them
moral
doing
authority,
things. Yeah.
But
Gotta put
once
these
they
things
get beyond the
away and lock
teens
stuff.
and they're adults, I can, fuck that, I'll do whatever I want. But if I was going back to growing, because I switched over to autoflowers.
Oh yeah.
So it's back to this pragmatism, I would grow over the winter only, just left me free in the summer, go in holidays, all that stuff. And plus I was growing in the attic, so it used to get really hot in the summer. But I found autos, again, I would just be getting a little 4x2 going, and I would be getting like 4 plants through there now this would be 3 or 4 week old seedlings, but in like maybe 8 weeks, So I get 2 runs done over the winter. That was me. I like 12 jars. I'm done for the year.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
But it was with autos, and I again, it's one of those things when I'm talking to customers and they're new. I try to push them, if they're just setting up and stuff and they're looking for advice. I try to push them towards autos.
He's
I'm
the
not
polar
big-
opposite.
He is
It's
cringing right now.
hilarious.
You hate autos, do you?
Well, no,
Are you-
it's funny. It's not that I don't hate autos. I just think that's where good genetics go to die.
okay.
But
okay,
when I tell people,
but you know that there's a
But one thing I just want to admit is I tell people that autos are great for beginners.
yeah.
It's plant it and forget it.
Yeah.
Water it.
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
train it. Don't
Yeah.
worry about the
But
light.
the other thing about it
Go.
as well is like if you're going to fuck up, you can fuck up much quicker. So
Yeah,
if you're
And then you could
to
have a catastrophe, you get into flower
100%.
with all these issues.
yeah.
Your
It's
plants
just it takes a couple of things out of the equation
Yeah.
in terms of and it's all, but it's quicker, right? So, like let's say it takes you 5 or 6 cycles to sort of just dial everything in and get even understanding differences in winter and summer and your setup and stuff. You can have 5 or 6 cycles done in a year with autos.
Yeah,
So
especially if
you're
somebody-
learning
There's a ton of benefits,
Well,
especially if
the
you're going,
speed that you're learning at,
and with
you know.
no room. If you're living in an
Yeah,
apartment
yeah,
in
yeah,
New
yeah,
York,
yeah,
you've only
yeah.
got
You don't have
one
perpetual
tent.
space.
Yeah, yeah.
You just throw
The
your stuff in
production
there.
goes
That-
way up. It
That
goes-
to me is the number one reason.
Productivity
to go
is
to
way
autos.
up.
And
You
that's
want
where
one
those.
tent, one light.
Yeah.
You want $1,000.
But in terms of the quality of the smoke, right? Is it that significant?
there's no difference.
Yeah,
I've never.
What do you when you say about genetics go to die and stuff? What are you saying?
You can't
that
clone
there's-
it.
You can't clone them.
You can't
Yeah.
clone it, and that's
So I
part
just
is-
feel
yeah.
like you do all this work.
But again, right? You know, I would have this discussion with people, and I'd say, so in terms of the total cost of my run, a lot of it is to do with time, right? I just want to get it over and done with, put the thing down, and I'm done for the year. And if I have to, I'm only growing 4 plants. So I used to grow 6. One thing I did find with autos is that there was always runts in the litter. So
Yeah.
I always germinated. So I'd cull them after week 3 or 4 because there'd be always 2 lagging behind out of 5 or 6.
Yeah, you have one that
So in that
finishes
way,
the
they were
size of a
like
beer bottle.
unstable, or I don't know whether that's bad genetics but it was always seemed to happen with any seeds that I tried, auto ones.
The runts, just having runts.
Just having out
Yeah.
of 5 or 6
I'm
plants.
gonna
there would be-
honestly. This is my personal experience, and there is no difference
yeah.
between an auto flowering.
I haven't had any killer
genetic
smoke auto flowers yet. They've
versus-
all been really
I've-
mild
I've
and
had
average.
I've had some
Yeah.
good smoke. I've had some, and I've
They've
grown
all
my
been
own.
just like,
Had
like
an
this stuff
I had
here
an
that we just
amnesia
smoked
haze.
was an auto.
It was an auto. It was a great smoke. It was wonderful. I had no complaints about it at all. I've never had a difference between the smoke and the grow. The difference is that one light cycles at 12 and 12, and one doesn't.
Well,
Yeah.
and the simplicity too for some people of the fact that they don't have to choose when you're going to flip it. And they're like, how long do I veg for? How long? What do I do? Like I could see using one of those grow boxes and just auto flowers and cranking them out.
But there's another. Well, this is another interesting. And so this is where cranking comes into effect. So
Sorry,
if you're
what?
thinking
Cracking?
cranking.
Oh,
cranking
cranking, like
them
getting
out.
them out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Turn and
So
burn.
up in your production. So remember we were speaking earlier about when we were talking about 800 or 900 par being kind of what people are using these days. Most of that is for 12-hour cycle.
Yeah,
So that
that's true.
DLI is about, I think it's 32 DLI or something. But if you go to autos, you're doing that for, most people are doing about 20 hours.
20 to 24 even for some people.
Yeah,
There's 18.6 is like the
I asked
general-
actually Bruce Bugby, I asked this question about autoflowers, and I asked him, do they require sleep at night? Do they require this off period in order? And he says, well, they
do?
Yeah.
do?
Well,
Autoflowers
plants
in
generally,
general?
he couldn't know. He was quite conditional about what he said. He said he haven't studied this, so he couldn't say for cannabis plants.
Right. I'm not
But-
going to be one to argue, Mr. Bruce. Dr.
No. But
I heard,
he was saying, first of all, he said he didn't know. Okay.
okay.
But he said he doesn't know for autoflowers, but he does know for most plants that there are processes
There
that
are.
occur within the plant at
Yes.
nighttime.
That's right.
And therefore, for a healthy plant, that you should
There is an-
But I know plenty of people that run autos
I'm one of them.
24.
But
So
I'm
Yeah,
one
I've
of them.
seen beautiful
You know,
results with 24.
Yeah, I've run
can be
veg
done,
plants.
yeah.
all
So
the time, 24.
normally, what I say to people is just go 20 hours, and it's like,
Well, when I used to run the 24
Your
hours
electricity bill is my
nonstop,
thing.
the
Fuck.
thing is that's it. Why would I
yeah.
run 24
For
hours
what?
when I can take a 6-hour break?
This goes
18?
back to our
well, this
argument
is
of
GLI
supplemental
though.
light.
This is
It's like-
GLI though. So the argument for me would not be about the sleep cycle then. So say the health of the plant isn't isn't affected by running continuously. The next argument is, are you just wasting electricity?
Right.
And
So
that's where
don't.
the under-
Are you
underlies this
have you
argument.
topped? Is that plant just maxed out in terms of being able to photosynthesize to the level that you're asking it to, with the power intensity being that high over that duration? So if you do 900 DLI, or sorry, 900 micromoles, you're now up to 64 DLI. So you've jumped from 32 DLI to 64, and like we were speaking about earlier on, that line of where the plant is still productive in any given day, given the amount, it falls off.
Yeah.
So
That's
for
where
me,
it's like
it's more a case of, if you're running at 800 or 900, you should probably not have your lights on all day, because you're probably wasting about
Right. It's more
a quarter
waste
of that light is just not doing anything.
and efficiency.
And this
Yeah.
is the argument I feel like we're
You're
talking
making
about.
it-
The underlighting is like, yeah, you
Sure,
can,
you are.
but why?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like a lot. I used to see that argument with I'm not even gonna say the name brands, but with like the sweeteners, we'll say the Bud candies, the ones I'm like, why? I already have this in that
Dastardly.
nutrition. It's already in my regimen. I don't need to add this in. Well, it'll make it more trichome sweeter. You want purple frost?
faster buds.
You want what was the one that everybody used to get from Humboldt? Something. It was the Frost. No, it wasn't Frost. Oh my God, everybody got it. Can't even remember. It had like
didn't you?
yeah, it had like a little like caveman on the cover of it, dude. Like you had to have that if you wanted trichomes. That was the argument, and everybody stopped using. Gosh, I gotta remember.
or something.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Is like a lot of these things. They make it so it's this plant specific. They'll add a ton of water to it, and they have good marketing. And there's no science behind it besides the basics. And they're like, oh,
That's that anecdotal. Just
or like
running.
heavy paid willow water. Now the willow water you're buying has a name brand on it, and it's some magic snake oil. It's like it's willow water. Oh, but now it's magic willow.
Influence, baby.
You know, influence and
Influence.
marketing, man, and that's the part that sickens me with the news side. That I'm glad that content creators like us are out there that'll just say stuff sometimes and piss people
Look,
off.
I was
but,
talking to a lady the other night on the strip about crystals. Okay, so
That's what I'm
she was
saying.
into her crystals, and I
How
was
on earth would you argue with that?
I wasn't being cynical, but I was gently prodding and poking to see to what extent she believed in crystals,
Yeah,
and
it's
what
like-
it actually did for her.
The crazy things.
And
on the strip.
well, people believe in crystals. They'll believe
if they feel it and they
fucking
believe
anything.
in it,
They'll
let them
believe
believe
in
it. and feel it.
fucking
You know, I'm
anything.
almost envious of people that can go that deep into things like that because it's like, man,
and think
I
it
mean
changed their everything.
Yeah, you're willing to go so
No
far
offense
out.
to any of those listening. Your belief system is belief system.
Man, Shane, we could sit here and we could
We
chat
have food,
and
though.
chat and
Yeah,
chat.
we
We
got
got
food
food on the way.
we got food,
Yes.
and on the way, the food's
Yes.
over there.
And it's
there.
right there. But Shane, honestly, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day, your week, to come and talk to us. We hung out
Burning
quite a
one.
bit today, and man, it was so fun to get to know you.
Dude.
You're an awesome dude. You're a gem to this community when it comes to knowledge, information in a good quality format.
And keeping it real.
And keeping it real. And honestly, for those that think like this is the same guy, he's cooler
He's even
in person
cooler.
than he is on his videos.
Him and Chris
It's
have a
so
similar
formal.
thing. Him and Chris very similar.
It's feeling like
cooler.
entrapment now.
It's like, what the
He's
hell's
not
going on
leaving.
now?
The door is open,
He's not
isn't it?
leaving.
I gotta go somewhere, guys.
We already know you guys are following Shane on Migro over on YouTube. You're on the Insties too, hey?
Instagram and
Sorry.
TikTok.
And TikTok.
Yeah, tell the
You're
people where they can
TikToking.
find
Yeah,
you.
where can
I'm
people find you?
TikToking, yeah. I'm getting down
He's
to kids.
TikToking.
So is it just Migro?
You know what I'm saying? He's hip now.
MIGRO, yeah.
On all of them? TikTok.
On all of them. I've cornered
Fantastic.
the Migro.
Perfect.
Yeah, lucky
Again,
you. I'm
obviously
Rob
the Pigeons
CLtv,
thing.
Rob underscore CLtv.
Although everybody calls
Just
me
Rob.
Migro, so
CLTV.
it hasn't worked out totally. There are downsides.
Oh, man, that's it. Shane, thank you
Yeah.
so much, bro. This was a hell of an
Shane.
episode.
Yeah,
Thank you
very
guys
much.
for tuning in. Mr. Grow at ROB, Shane from Migro, Pigeons, have yourselves a great day.
And wink on the ones and twos.
And
Appreciate
wink on the
you.
ones and twos.
Take care, guys.
Take care.